All right, so we give Father all the glory and praise, and we thank Him for another Shabbat. Thank Father for the Feast of Dedication, and what we're going to learn today is what happened during the Feast of Dedication. This has nothing to do with Hanukkah. Hanukkah is a satanic ritual and a satanic holiday that the Jesuits created. It has nothing to do with Christmas. That's also a satanic holiday. Has nothing to do with the Feast of Dedication. Then you have some Israelites who have the nerve to say, we don't have to celebrate it because it's not part of the Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. So you don't have to celebrate it. And then they go so far as to say, Jesus didn't celebrate it. Ooh, really? See, here we don't deal with fairy tales. We deal with scriptures. Here we deal with the truth. All right? Then you have some Israelites saying that don't call it the Feast of Lights. That's not the Feast of Lights. Then you have some say that, well, we don't do it because the Maccabees, they turned evil. So we don't honor what they did. Okay? To each his own. But here, we celebrate it. And I'm going to show you why it's needed to be celebrated. And also, let's dispel that rumor right now about how the Maccabees turned evil. The Maccabees did not turn evil and became the Pharisees. I mean, I don't know where that's coming from, and I don't know who's teaching that garbage, but the Maccabees did not become the Pharisees. Okay? If you understand Bible, if you understand the Bible, then you understand that the Pharisees had nothing to do with the Maccabees or the Hellenists. So there's people out there who are really messing up the Bible, really messing up how it should be taught. They're saying that the Maccabees became the Hellenists. That's not possible. But we're going to break this down, and we're going to get an understanding on the Feast of Dedication. So all praises be to Ahaya, Ba'ashem Yeshaya, Wah, as we understand and know why the Feast of Dedication is so, it's important. It's not part of the Levitical feast, but it's still important. Purim is not part of the Levitical the Levitical feast. But that's also an important event because none of us would be sitting here right now if it wasn't for Sister Hadassah. All right? So all praise be to the Most High. Okay, our media, the YouTube channel, and all praise be to Father for that. It continues to grow, even though we had a little hiccup. Our teachings will be flowing once again. Our next street preach is going to be December 24th. We're not going street preaching before because we're going to fine-tune some things. Services, day 6, deliverance prayer at 8:30. Shabbat teachings are at noon. Day 3, men's Bible study. We're putting that on hold for right now. Join our conference line, and if you want to send an email to a new Revelation 210 at Gmail, you can be added and get invite for all the teachings. All right, teachings that we got coming up. And you know, one thing I want to do is I want to apologize again. Because I thought that we taught on spiritual gifts. And I've been sitting up here hollering about people should get their spiritual gifts. Well, how can you get your spiritual gifts if we haven't even had a teaching on spiritual gifts?
We did. It was with the other group, and we didn't record it.
Okay. So I have to apologize because I'm telling you all need to get your spiritual gifts. You need to start operating in them. But how are you going to know how to do something if you don't know about it? So that's going to be next week. Why does the devil hate women? That's next month. Where have they taken my Lord? Part 2. That's next month. We did part 1. Part 1 is on YouTube. Slavery. We're going to readdress that with Lamentations. December 25th, Exposed. We're going to have that teaching on December 17th. Because December 24th, we're going to be out street preaching. Healing oils and foods and spiritual blockers to healing. Those are teachings coming up. Our next holy day is the winter holy day, according to Jubilees, the 6th chapter. The winter, summer, spring, and fall, when those seasons change, those are considered holy days, and that was a statute that was given by Moses to be kept for all generations. Okay? That'll be December 17th. Purim, February 21st and 22nd, that is month 11. Purim, we're going to understand on the 21st, Sister Esther, or Sister Hadassah, and what she did. And then on the 22nd, we're going to have a teaching on the Jubilee, because I know everybody has heard me talk about the Jubilees. Well, we're going to really break it down on that day and get an understanding. Next week, we're going to talk about spiritual gifts. Understand what the Bible says about spiritual gifts. Understand how Yeshua operated in spiritual gifts. Okay, that's going to be a huge teaching next week. Today, we're going to talk about the Feast of Dedication, 1745, right? Not 2016. Sure. Okay. These are the fake causoids. They're sitting there, lighting our candle. We're going to talk about the menorah a little bit too, also during this teaching. Because there's a lot of Israelites who say that the menorah is a pagan Jewish symbol. Well, let's see what the Bible says, not what man says. All right? But these worthless people shouldn't be touching our artifacts. All right, we're on slide 9. Like I said earlier, this is not Hanukkah. Hanukkah is some satanic Jewish tradition. It's not Christmas, it's not Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa was something that you black people thought of. Well, we ain't got no holiday. The Jewish, they got Hanukkah. We want one for ourselves so we can celebrate Mama Africa. You a mama fool. Because you ain't came from Africa. You're Israelites. You ain't come from Africa. You came from Israel. Okay, so Kwanzaa has nothing to do with us. It's satanic also. Alright? On these days, it's all about money and exchanging gifts. There's only one holy day that we exchange gifts on. And I'm going to show you that in the Bible when we get to Purim. But there's only one day that we're supposed to exchange gifts for. All right, Daniel had spoken regarding the king of the north whose heart was to be set against the holy covenant. He would defile the temple and the fortress, setting up the abomination that makes desolate. That's Daniel the 11th chapter. We're not going to go there because it's a lot of scriptures. Daniel 11 verses 7 through 45. 375 years after Daniel spoke these words, Antiochus came onto the scene. And Antiochus was part of the Seleucid king. King Seleucid was one of the 4 Greek kings who took over after Alexander the Greek died. There were 4 kings that took over after Alexander the Greek. Seleucid is one of the kings, and his son, or grandson, or great-grandson, something like that, Antiochus, he came on the scene. And Antiochus is the setting on what we're going to start talking about today with the Maccabees. Alright? After a military campaign against the Ptolemies, which was another king of Greek, and they had Egypt. Seleucid had like the Middle East. They came into Jerusalem and they took the silver from in the temple. In 2 years there was a battle. And when you see the word Hellenistic, that means Greek culture. Hellenistic has nothing to do with the Maccabees. Nothing as far as they becoming Hellenistic. That's wrong. Hellenistic, and I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead because I have that on the slide later. On the 15th day of the Jewish month of Sheshvan, which falls somewhere between November and December, the Greeks, they put in our holy temple a statue of Zeus, to totally defile the temple. Totally defiled the temple. They were sacrificing swine all over the place, killing our people, putting a statue of Zeus in the Holy of Holies. Now, how desecrated is that? They did all kinds of things. And if anybody did not practice these rituals, they were put to death. They were tortured and they were put to death. You had some people who did follow. We're going to find out about those people today also. See, when you do a teaching, you want to cover everything. We're just not going to talk about the Maccabees and what they did, but what about the other people? What about Jacob? And I'm not talking about Jacob from the 12 tribes. There's a different Jacob. What about him? What did he do? A few other people who will remind you of your pastors today and what they did. Okay. So when we teach on something, it's not going to be, oh, we're going to glorify, thank the Most High for the Maccabees. Because there was people who are operating on the other side also. We need to know about them also. All right? Hellenistic. That means it's related to Greek history, language, or culture. Okay? That's what Hellenistic means. Has nothing to do with the Maccabees. And I don't know where this stuff is coming about that the Maccabees turned into Hellenistic Greeks. And thus came our Pharisees. That's wrong.
Oh, wow. Somebody teaching that for real?
That's wrong. I'm not going to say the group's name. But all the Israelites just went along with it. Not all the Israelites went along with it. Most of them did. When you start working in oppression, most people say, you know what? It's easier to just follow their laws. It would be easier just to follow their laws. Those are ones who want to lose their life, who don't want to lose their life. But there were some people who wanted to lose their life, and we're going to show you that also. All right? Okay, so Matthias. Matthias had 5 sons, and they moved to Jerusalem. Okay? Matthias and his sons fled town into the wilderness. After Matthias died in 166, his son Judah, called the Maccabee, not Judah, the one who betrayed Messiah. He took over, and he started to have a battle. What? 16. And he started to have a fight. And he went up against the seculoids, which are the Greeks. Okay? I'm going to show you that also. So when they finally got to the temple was all in destruction. The altar, the gates were burned. But this was prophesied in the book of Daniel. And people don't catch it. It was prophesied in Daniel. But remember, Daniel was 375. Daniel was living during the Babylonian captivity. He died in the very early part of Persia. Persia had the world conquered for a good 200 some odd years.
Oh, wow.
Before the Greeks came on. Okay? The people then celebrated the rededication of the altar. That's what we're doing. But we are celebrating a more important temple right now. And that's your temple. We don't have a temple anymore where the Greeks, Romans, Babylonians, Persians, Medes, Russians can come in and desecrate it. The only way your temple can be desecrated is if you desecrate it. Alright? First scripture, 2 Chronicles chapter 29, verse 17. 2 Chronicles chapter 29, verse 17. Alright, let's read it.
Now they began on the first day of the first month to sanctify. And on the 8th day of the month came they to the porch of the Most High. So they sanctified the house of the Most High in 8 days. And in the 16th day of the first month they made an end.
All right, so they sanctified the house of the Most High in 8 days. All right. The rededication of the temple was an important moment, but the war was not over. There were many more battles, more than 20 or more years of conflict between the Seculoids and Judah himself. Now, ultimately, they succumbed. Ultimately, they did not have the resources to battle with the Greek Empire. Even though the Greek Empire was split into 4, they still did not, they kept up a good fight. And that's all that really is needed. If you keep up a good fight, keep your values, keep your statutes, keep your laws. Don't let anybody tell you what you're going to do. Don't let anyone change the laws that the Most High has given you. It's just like the mark of the beast back then. Remember, I always say history repeats itself. The Israelites will begin a celebration, the rededication of the temple, and the event surrounding it as the Feast of Lights or dedication. While the Feast of Dedication is not explicitly commanded by the Most High, and it is not found in Scripture, since there was no prophet in the land at that time. Every feast, we're on 22, every feast there was a prophet to declare it as a feast, not for dedication. 1 Maccabees chapter 4 verse 46. 1 Maccabees chapter 4 verse 46. We're going to be in the Maccabees a lot today. I think I said about a month ago, get familiar with the Maccabees because we're going to be in it when dedication comes. I think I said that about a month ago to read 1st, 2nd Maccabees. Some apocryphas have 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Maccabees, but it's still 1st, 2nd Maccabees. They just broke it into 4. 1 Maccabees 4:46, let's read it.
And laid up the stones in the mountain of the temple in a convenient place, until there should come a prophet to show what should be done with them.
So they laid up the stones in the mountains of the temple until a prophet comes to tell them what to do next. So there was no prophet at the time of the Maccabees. Okay? It's the time frame in between the last book of the Old Testament, which is Malachi, which is sort of correct. And then you have St. Matthew in the New. But we know that St. Matthew shouldn't be the first book anyway. It should be St. Luke. That should be the first book to start off the New Testament. So between Malachi and Luke, this is the time frame. There are 400 years that went past, and this is about the time where we're speaking of. The reasons for observing it is understandable. Judah and those around him ascribed all glory to the Most High. They knew that their insurgency was of its own and little hope. But this was prophesied in the book of Daniel. So let's get it. Daniel chapter 11, verse 32 to 36. And remember earlier I said read Daniel chapter 11, verses 7 to whatever it was. This is part of it.
45.
All right, Daniel chapter 11, verses 32 to 36. Let's read that.
And such as do wickedly against the covenant shall he corrupt by flatteries. But the people that do know their power shall be strong and do exploits.
So the people who know the Most High will be strong. With some of these people, you're going to find out. And we are going to talk about the woman and her 5 sons. We're going to go to 1 Maccabees, the 6th chapter, I believe. Chapter 7. But there were more than just them. And I'm going to show you why they had to be strong. Verse 33.
And they that understand among the people shall instruct many. Yet they shall fall by the
They shall
sword,
fall by the sword,
Oh, wow.
and by the flame,
and by the flame,
by captivity,
by captivity,
and by spoil,
and by spoil.
many days.
This is what happened in the Maccabees. This is what happened during the Greek captivity. Remember, Daniel was not around during the Greek captivity. He was long gone. 34.
Now when they shall fall, they shall be holpen with a little help, but many shall cleave to them with flatteries.
Many shall cleave to their fighters. Going back to verse 33, yeah, a lot of people were killed by the sword. A lot of people were set on fire. We're going to show you that. People went into captivity, and people were succumbed by spoil. I'm going to show you all that in the Maccabees. Verse 35.
And some of them of understanding shall fall, to try them, and to purge, and to make them white, even to the time of the end, because it is yet for a time appointed.
So but Daniel said, because it is yet for a time appointed. That means that what he's writing has not happened yet. He's prophesying. When it says understanding shall fall to try them, we're going to find out what that means also. There was some people who were quote unquote high priests who didn't operate like it. 36.
And the king shall do according to his will. And he
That's
shall
Antiochus. That's who they're talking about. Go ahead.
and he shall exalt himself,
Yeah.
and magnify himself above every god,
Uh-huh.
and shall speak marvelous things against the power of the gods, and shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished. For that is determined shall be done.
For that is determined shall be done. Now, how do we know this is talking about the Greeks?
Because there's many gods. It's the power of gods.
Yeah, but the Babylonians had many gods too. The Persians had many gods. How do we know this is talking about the Greeks? It's because the Greeks, well, Rome really didn't desecrate the temple. They just destroyed it. They just annihilated it. But the Greeks kept the temple up. And they defiled the temple. The Romans didn't defile the temple. They just flat out destroyed it. But the Greeks defiled it by sacrificing animals, by making us eat animals of unclean flesh, by exalting their gods as God, by telling us not to keep the Shabbat. All kinds of stuff that they did. Okay? No other words are escaping me. No other group of people that put us in captivity defiled the temple. The Babylonians did not defile the temple. Nebuchadnezzar knew way better than that.
He just took everything out of it.
He just took everything, and his son actually was his second son, because he had a first one. He didn't defile the temple, he just defiled the artifacts. Persia came around, and there were several kings in Persia. None of them defiled the temple. Yes?
So when you say
Yes, speak up.
when you say he defiled the artifacts, was that the one that drank wine out of the cups?
Right,
Okay.
that was Belshazzar.
So he didn't defile the temple. Just
No, he didn't defile the temple. The Persians did not defile the temple. None of them did. The Romans didn't defile the temple, they just annihilated the temple. They just destroyed it. Okay? It was the Greeks who defiled the temple. Judah and his people believed that the power of Israel was the one true power, and he loved his people, and he would provide for them. Okay? That's what he believed. Not everybody believed it. Let's get a list of the holy days. We have the Feast of Dedication, which is now. We have Purim, the big one, the Passover. The unleavened bread, Feast of Passover would be the second Shabbat in month 1. Passover, the unleavened bread is right after that. They're not the same. There's Israelites who are teaching that Passover and unleavened bread are the same, and they're not. First fruits is Pentecost. That's in May. Yeah.
Do you eat unleavened bread on the unleavened bread?
Yes, you have to have unleavened bread. You cannot eat anything of leaven.
And it cannot be found in your
It
house.
cannot be found of your house.
So you have
That's the physical part of it. The spiritual part of it is sin.
Sin, yeah.
So we have to get rid of all the store-bought bread and stuff like that.
Well, we're not going to have it in the house anyway. We normally, before unleavened bread comes, we normally clear all that stuff off.
So flour too.
Anything that rise.
Anything that rise. But there's a spiritual connotation to that also. We're following both. A lot of Israelite groups say you don't have to get rid of the leaven in your house because the leaven is sin in your heart. But we do both. Okay, there's nothing wrong with doing both.
And this is between men and women.
That's the day after Passover for 1 week. So whatever day is after Passover for 1 week. First fruits, that's Pentecost. And we know what Pentecost is, right?
No.
Pentecost is when Peter gave probably the third or fourth best sermon there was. When the Holy Spirit came upon them in the upper room, where 3,000 souls were baptized in one day. Okay, that's Pentecost. We're going to learn a lot more about that closer to Pentecost. Blowing of trumpets, Day of Atonement, Tabernacles. All right? What is it about? What is this about? 29. During the time of the Maccabees, Antiochus and the Greeks had defiled the temple of the Most High, made it a law that children of Israel could not follow the commandments. The Greeks stole the vessels from the temple, profaned it by sacrificing swine and other abominations. The dedication is a remembrance on how Jonathan Maccabee led our people into fighting against the Greeks. You have to understand this. What the Maccabees were doing would be kind of like an Israelite group going against the U.S. Army. An Israelite group of about 12,000 going up against the U.S. Army. It would be kind of like that. But we're going to see that some battles, they didn't even have weapons. What did Yeshua do? I say I have these scriptures. You can read that on your own. Acts chapter 7, verse 48. We do have 1 Corinthians 3, 16, 17, so you don't have to write that down. We'll get that later on in the teaching. Okay? Gentlemen, know these scriptures. Jeremiah chapter 10, verses 1 through 5. Jeremiah chapter 10, verse 1 through slide. Jeremiah chapter 10, verse 1 through 5. Let's read it.
Hear ye the word which the Most High speaketh unto you, O house of Israel.
You got to speak up because people on YouTube need to hear you. Go ahead.
Thus saith the Most High, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs from heaven. For the heathen are dismayed at them.
Don't be dismayed. When it says the signs of heaven, don't be dismayed at what's going on out in the world. Not the signs in the heavens, because as we know, this earth is heaven. So don't be dismayed at the signs that are going on around here. Don't be dismayed. You walk in a dollar store and you say, here comes Satan Claus, here comes Satan Claus. Don't be dismayed by all that stuff. Right? Verse 3.
For the customs of the people are vain.
The customs of the people are vain. You see people decorating their house. That's vanity. Go ahead.
For one cutteth the tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workman with the axe.
Cutteth the tree out in the forest. Verse 4.
They deck it with silver and with gold. They fasten it with nails and with hammers, that it move not.
Now, people argue. What could that possibly be? People argue That ain't what that's saying. Well, what is it saying then? Somebody tell me. Maybe I need to.
Light of altar sacrifice on the altar which was at Modi, according to the king's commandment.
Didn't we read some of this in Daniel, the 11th chapter?
Yep.
God.
Maccabees really, Maccabees is a wonderful precept for Daniel, the 11th chapter. We're going to find out more. As the temple was completed, Judas and his brethren proclaimed the second Shabbat of the 9th month to be an 8-day feast of mirth and gladness. Okay? We're going to learn about mirth a little more when we talk about stuff that can heal. First Maccabees chapter 1, verses 1 through 3. First Maccabees 1 through 3. And let's read that.
And it happened. After that, Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chedem, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece.
All right, so this is when the Persians were defeated by the Greeks. Okay. Verse 2.
And made many wars, and won many strongholds, and slew the kings of the earth.
3.
And went through to the ends of the earth, and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him.
Earth was quiet before him. That means, go ahead.
Whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up.
All right, so approximately 333 BC, Alexander the Greek conquered all nations, gaining control of the Eastern world and Africa, up to, I believe, India. He went as far as India, captured pretty much all of what's known of Europe, up to the northern part of Africa and Central Africa. That's how the Greek Empire that's what the Greek Empire was. He had 4 generals upon his death. Ptolemy had Egypt and Ethiopia. Cassander had Macedonia and Greece. Who knows what Macedonia is today? I don't know, I was just asking. Saculus was Syria and Babylon, and Lysimachus was Thrace and Asia Minor. Later, a wicked king known as Antiochus began to have dominant rule over the Egypt Empire, commanded that all Israel bow down to Greek customs. We're going to break this up. First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 7 to 28. And we're going to break these scriptures up. We're at 48, slide 48. First Maccabees chapter 1, verses 7 to 28. Let's read that.
So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died.
So Alexander, that's talking about Alexander the Greek. He reigned 12 years and died. Go ahead.
And his servants bear rule over everyone in his place.
Now, one thing about Alexander, when he died, I think he was 33.
Yeah, he was really young.
He was very young when he died. So for him to rule 12 years, about 20,
Yeah.
conquered the known world. Go ahead. What's that?
It's like Serbia,
Macedonia,
Greece,
northern part of Greece. Okay.
Bulgaria.
Bulgaria, Croatia, up in that area. Okay. Verse 9.
And after his death they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years. And evils were multiplied in the earth.
Verse 10.
And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus surnamed Ephanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been hostage of Rome. And he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks.
Verse 11.
In those days went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, Let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about.
We're going to find out about these people who said, let us make a covenant with the Greeks. let us make a covenant with the Greeks. We're going to find out about those people. Go ahead.
For since we departed from them, we may have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well.
Pleased them well. Antiochus was pleased that many of the Jews decided, you know what? Let's just fall under Greek. Let's forget about Ahiah, and let's call on Zeus. Let's call on Hermes. No, I think Hermes is Roman. Hermes is Roman. Apollo. Let's call on Zeus. Let's call on Apollo. Let's call on Neptune, I think is Roman. Neptune.
Aphrodite.
Is Greeks.
Who? Which one?
Poseidon.
Poseidon, yes. Let's call on them.
Aphrodite was the
Goddess of love. So, yeah, I get my Roman Greek gods mixed up.
But they're kind of the same. They just have different names.
Yeah, they have the same title, but they just have different names. Same thing. So they agreed that, you know, they can let's just make a covenant with them, because the temple, everything was just ransacked, and there were actual Israelites offering swine in the temple. They just turned. I'm going to show you something in a minute. Let's go to verse 13 and 18. Let's read that.
Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen.
So the king is going to say, okay, you can do whatever. You're going to follow my Greek gods and follow me. Go ahead. Verse 14.
Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen, and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief.
They were made, the children, they didn't get them circumcised. They didn't keep the law, statutes, and commandments. They just fell left and right. 16.
Now when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Egypt, that he might have the dominion of 2 realms. Wherefore he entered into Egypt with a great multitude, with chariots and elephants and horsemen, and a great navy.
Now remember, Egypt was under Ptolemy. These are the secularists. So Egypt was under Ptolemy at this time. So now you got Greeks fighting against Greeks. But remember, I keep saying this, history repeats itself. And in Revelation, when the red beast comes, they're going to be fighting against themselves. According to Revelation, I want to say the 6th chapter. History just repeats itself. Let's read. Oh, it's right there, verse 18. Go ahead.
And made war against Ptolemy, king of Egypt. But Ptolemy was afraid of him and fled, and many were wounded to death.
Many were wounded to death. 19.
Thus they got the strong cities in the land of Egypt, and he took the spoils thereof. And after that Antiochus had smitten Egypt, he returned again in the 143rd year, and went up against Israel and Jerusalem with a great multitude, and entered proudly into the sanctuary, and took away the golden altar and the candlestick of light, and all the vessels thereof.
Took away everything. Verse 22.
And the table of the shewbread, and the pouring vessels and the vials, and the censers of gold, and the veil and the crown, and the golden ornaments that were before the temple, all which he pulled off.
He took everything. 23.
And he took also the silver and the gold and the precious vessels. Also he took the hidden treasures which he found.
He took the hidden treasures. 24. So this is what Judas and Jonathan had to get back. 24.
And when he had taken all away, he went into his own land, having made a great massacre, and spoke very proudly.
Didn't we read that in Daniel, the 11th chapter, where the king was going to be speaking proudly, boisterously? We read that in Daniel, the 7th chapter. Yes, Daniel, the 7th chapter. 25.
Therefore there was a great mourning in Israel, in every place where they were, so that the princes and elders mourned, virgins and young men were made feeble, and the beauty of women was changed. Every bridegroom took up lamentation, and she that sat in the marriage chamber was in heaviness. The land also was moved for the inhabitants thereof, and all the house of Jacob was covered with confusion.
Imagine that. I mean, you're living peaceably, sort of. And then here come the Greeks. Here come the Greeks. Okay? Here come the Greeks. Basically, the king was saying, you know what? You follow our Hellenistic ways or you're going to die. A lot of us went to that. That's why I say, if you do not make it to the wilderness, you will take the mark of the beast. You will. No, I won't. Yeah, you will. They did the same thing. There was only a select few who said, no, I'm not going to do it. But we're going to see what happened to these people. That's why get your stuff right now. Get yourself together now, while there's peace and while there's quiet. And I'm saying peace and quiet in the middle of war, because it is peace and quiet for us. Get yourself together now. You don't want to try to make it through the wilderness. I mean, you don't want to try to make it without going to the wilderness. Because either you're going to implement the mark of the beast or you're going to be beheaded. Or, I'll show you. So basically, follow the Greeks or die. Let's get 1 Maccabees chapter 1, verse 31 to 36. Some of this stuff is going to sound familiar. But I keep saying history repeats itself, right? Everybody understand 70 AD, right?
Time.
Okay. Let's hold 70 AD in the back of your head for a second. Let's go 1 Maccabees 1, 31, 36. Let's get it.
And when he had taken the spoils of the city, he set it on fire, and pulled down the houses and walls thereof on every side.
Daniel 11th chapter. Go ahead.
But the women and children took they captive, and possessed the cattle.
Go ahead.
Then builded they the city of David with a great and strong wall, and with mighty towers, and made it a stronghold for them.
Verse 34.
And they put therein a sinful nation, wicked men, and fortified themselves therein. They stored it also with armor and victuals. And when they had gathered together the spoils of Jerusalem, they laid them up there. And so they became a sore snare. For it was a place to lay against the sanctuary, an evil adversary to Israel.
What does that sound like? Sounds like 70 AD. Remember, we're not in 70 AD right now. Now, I mean, on the teaching. This is our temple. Solomon Temple supposedly look like. We're gonna. Okay. Let's go to 1 Maccabees chapter 1, verse 37 to 41. Slide. Okay. 1 Maccabees 1, 37 to 41. And let's read it.
Thus they shed innocent blood on every side of the sanctuary and defiled it, insomuch that the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them. Whereupon the city was made inhabited strangers, and became strange to those that in her. Her own children left her. Her sanctuary was laid waste like a wilderness. Her feasts were turned into mourning. Her Sabbaths into reproach. Her honor into as had been so was honor increased, and her excellency was turned into mourning. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his son that all should be one people.
All should be equal. So, one world religion,
Oh, yeah.
one world,
Yeah.
one world. History just repeats itself. Same thing with same thing with Persia. Let's go even further. The same thing with Assyria. Same thing with the Greeks. Same with the Romans. Same with activity with styles. It's the same thing. One people, one order. That's all going to come to an end. It's one last time. Everything repeats itself. This is just like 70 AD, 135 AD. The exact same thing. Like I said earlier, This
Happy.
has nothing to do with Hanukkah. Nothing to do with Hanukkah. I would get into Hanukkah, but you know, it's not worth my breath. Let's go 1 Maccabees chapter 1, verse 42 to 45. 1 Maccabees 1, 42 to 45. Let's read it.
And everyone shall leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion,
Go ahead.
and sacrificed unto idols, and profaned the Sabbath.
Read 43 again.
Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion,
Considered to whose religion? The king. Go ahead, Greek. Go ahead.
and sacrificed unto idols,
Uh-huh.
and profaned the Sabbath.
That's what they did. That's what I'm saying. You don't make it to the wilderness.
That's the same as taking a mark.
It's the same as taking a mark. 44.
For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land.
Follow the strange laws of the land. Don't call on Ahiah. If I catch you calling on Ahiah, you're murdered. You better call on Zeus. Or call on me. Because back then, you know, they didn't have Caesars back then. Caesars, it's Rome. I apologize. I don't know why I got Rome in the back of my head for some reason. Maybe there's a teaching coming up on 325 AD. There is a teaching coming up on 325 AD about the Council of Nice.
Oh man. Yay, can't wait for that one.
All right, let's read 45.
And forbid burnt offerings, and sacrifice, and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days.
Okay, that's what they were doing. I'm sorry, I should have blown this up a little more. Slide 62. But that's what they were doing. They were festival. They were portraying. They were just doing all kinds of stuff in the temple. Okay. All right, let's go 1 Maccabees 1. We're going to be in 1 Maccabees for a minute.
I love this book.
1 Maccabees chapter 1, verses 46 to 50. 1 Maccabees 1, 46 to 50. Let's read it.
And pollute the sanctuary and holy people. Set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts.
So they did more than just swine flesh.
Oh yeah.
They did more than just pigs. Pigs are just the abomination of abominations. But they also had all kinds of animals. I mean, you could just name it, that were unclean. They had our books. They know what Moses said in Leviticus, the 11th chapter. They know that.
They was doing it all.
So they're reading our books just like they're doing now. They're reading our books. They're finding out what is going on. And they're doing the exact opposite.
Kind of like the Christian church.
Did you know that December 25th is really an orgy? What?
Winter solstice.
It's called the winter solstice.
That have something to do with the wreath, how you explained before with the season.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, we're going to really get into that. So while you're lighting up your tree, you're decorating your tree, while you're paying homage to Satan's penis, because that's what the tree is, and you're bowing down to his penis, putting gifts underneath that satanic tree,
Bowing down.
the winter solstice, that was nothing but a Roman orgy.
Yep.
We'll get into that in December 25th. I need to stay focused on,
Oh, I was going to say something.
I need to stay focused on dedication.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, go ahead. Oh, did we read that? Oh, let's read it.
that they should also leave their children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation, to the end that they might forget the law and change all the ordinances.
They did that to us already. A lot of us Israelites, we don't know the law. We didn't know the law until we came to this truth. We thought Christianity was the way.
And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said, he should die.
He should die. Antiochus continued furthering Greek influence, commanding Israelites to follow Greek customs or die. 1 Maccabees 1, 54 to 58. First, Second Maccabees should, you start reading that stuff, you're going to start disliking people. We haven't got to the hard stuff yet. This is pretty mild compared to what we're going to get into.
Do you know they're actually teaching this in Christianity in college? They're teaching this.
They ain't teaching it like this though, I bet.
No, I learned it, but not like this. They teach it like it was, I don't know, the opposite of what we're learning.
Of course. All right, First Maccabees 1, 54, 58. Let's get it.
Now the 15th day of the month Caslu, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar, and builded idol altars throughout the cities of Judah on every side.
Oh, wait a minute. Wasn't the abomination of desolation prophesied in the book of Daniel?
Yes.
Wow.
Go ahead.
And burnt incense at the door of their houses and in the streets. And when they had rent in pieces of the books of law,
They did what to our law?
rent in pieces the
They
books of law,
tore them up. Go ahead.
which they found, they burnt them with fire.
They burnt them with
That's
fire.
sad.
Of course, they didn't get all of our books. They didn't get everything, but majority of the stuff they destroyed. All right. I was about to get back to the abomination of desolation. History repeats itself.
Yes, it does.
You think just because it happened 2,000 years ago, it's not going to happen again? Yeah, it will. 57.
And whosoever was found with any of the book of the testimony, or if any committed to the law, the king's commandment was that they should put him to death.
Now, verse 57, it's coming soon. Walk around with a King James Version Bible, and that book is soon going to be outlawed. If the Sodomites have their way with it, the King James book is going to be outlawed. It's going to be illegal to carry a King James Bible, or they're just going to say any Bible.
Not the ones they created.
Okay, not the Queen James
But
Version.
yeah, Queen
You can
James
have that.
with a rainbow.
Mormons. But think about that for a second. They did that back then. They're going to do the same thing. 58.
Thus did they beat by their authority unto the Israelites every month, to as many as were found in the cities.
All right, let's go First Maccabees, chapter 1, 59 to 64. All right, let's read about people who didn't do it, who didn't follow the king and his Greek, whatever you want to call it, chaos. Let's read it.
Now the 25th day of the month they did sacrifice upon the idol altar, which is upon the altar of the Most High.
Go ahead.
At which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised.
So they started killing women. The women was like, no, we're going to follow the Most High. I'm circumcising my child when he turns 8 years old. What they do with the children? Verse 61.
And they hanged the infants about their necks and rifled their houses, and slew them that had circumcised them.
So they hung 8-day-old infants
Yeah. If they were circumcised.
if they were circumcised. The women were circumcised. So the Greek patrol would come in and they would keep the law, just like the Romans did, but a little more aggressive. The Romans didn't just kill anybody because they was keeping the laws. They made sure that you followed Roman law first, your law second. But the Greeks weren't like that. They were cruel people, to say the least. So the women were circumcising their children, and they bust in, he circumcised, kill the wife, and hang the child. 8 days old or older.
I forgot. Where did the Greeks come from?
That's another teaching. That's a whole nother teaching.
But the Greeks didn't lie. It's like
They
they're not
originated
Dan.
from Jacob.
They're not Dan, right?
They originated from
Okay.
No, the Greeks are not Dan. That's
Okay. I just got it mixed up because it's been a couple of years since.
These seem like scare tactics, in a way.
yeah.
Yeah.
They were terrorist tactics, scare tactics to make people follow. See, Nebuchadnezzar, he just put a decree out. The Persian kings, they really didn't, they let Israel be Israel, but Israel was under captivity because the Most High was controlling them. So Persia really didn't persecute us. It wasn't until the Greeks came along. Okay?
They do much worse nowadays, though, right?
They do who?
They do much worse with, 'cause you know I said, if the baby was circumcised, they would hang him.
Right.
8-month-old. But they do much worse nowadays.
Yeah, it's called Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
Kind.
And put it in our food.
The morning after pill.
It's called the morning after pill. It's called abortion clinics. So it's far, they didn't create it. All they did was just change the way of it, made it veneer.
Put it in our food.
Yeah, that too. All right, verse 62. Let's read it.
Howbeit many in Israel were fully resolved and confirmed in themselves not to eat any unclean thing.
Uh-huh.
Wherefore the rather to die, that they might not be defiled with meats, and that they might not profane the holy covenant. So when they died,
Uh-huh.
and there was very great wrath upon Israel.
Very great wrath upon Israel. Then they start to cry out to the Most High. First Maccabees, chapter 3, verse 50 to 60. So we're going to be jumping around the Maccabees for a little bit. First Maccabees, chapter 3, verses 50 to 60. Let's read it.
Then cried they with a loud voice toward heaven, saying, What shall we do with these? And whither shall we carry them away?
Uh-huh.
For thy sanctuary is trodden down and profaned, and thy priests are in heaviness and brought low.
Uh-huh.
And lo, the heathen are assembled together against us to destroy us. What things they imagine against us thou knowest.
Uh-huh. Verse 53.
How shall we be able to stand against them, except thou, O Ahiah, be our help?
Uh-huh.
Then sounded they with trumpets and cried with a loud voice.
Right, with a loud voice. 55.
And after this Judas ordained captains over the people, even captains over thousands, and over hundreds, and over 50s, and over 10s.
Uh-huh.
But as for such as were building houses, or had betrothed wives, or were planting vineyards, or were fearful, those he commanded that they should return, every man to his own house, according to the law.
So he didn't have soldiers. He had husbands. He had farmers. He had people who were cowards. He didn't have soldiers. The Greeks were soldiers. 57.
So the camp removed, and pitched upon the south side of Amas.
Uh-huh. But see, Judas, he did a prayer. We're going to have Judas' prayer later. Okay? And there's a certain song that he said that we're going to have to sing. History repeats itself. 58.
And Judas said, Arm yourselves, and be valiant men, and see that ye be in readiness against the morning, that ye may fight with these nations, that are assembled together against us to destroy us in our sanctuary. For it is better for us to die in battle than to behold the calamities of our people in our sanctuary.
Come on.
Nevertheless, as the will of the Most High is in heaven, so let him do.
Nevertheless, that's not the prayer that he prayed. We're going to get to that later. So the Greeks are now coming. So let's get 1 Maccabees chapter 4, verse 1 and 2. And then we're going to skip down to verse 3 through 9. 1 Maccabees chapter 4, verses 1 and 2. Let's read it. Now, go, Jordan is something. Okay, go ahead.
Then took Georgia 5,000 footmen and 1,000 of the best horsemen, and removed out of the camp by night, to the end he might rush in upon the camp of the Jews and smite them suddenly. And the men of the fortress were his guides.
So this was a Greek general. Okay? Now, let's see what Judas responded. 1 Maccabees 4, 3 through 9. Slide 76. 1 Maccabees chapter 4, verses 3 through 9. This is our history. And this is the history that is not taught anywhere. Couple of camps, that's about it. But this is our history. And the more that we understand and know our history, the more we understand on why we should be operating in the spirit of the Most High and not in the operating of Satan. History is not Martin Luther King.
No.
I'm sorry to disappoint you all who, I love Martin Luther the King.
He was amazing.
Yeah, he was amazing. So it's not Martin Luther King, sorry. It's not even Marcus Garvey. Sorry. It's not. That's not our history.
But you know, when they taught this, this was taught to me, at the time, I believed I was a Gentile. So that was not my history. You know, I didn't quite
Because you don't
understand it.
care.
Yeah.
The thing is that you don't care. It's not your history. So why should you care about it? You
That's
just
how I
like
felt
gloss
about
over it.
it.
Oh well. My history is slave ships. My history is being in Africa. With big nose in my nose. With big bone in my nose. Afuga. That's my history.
Yeah, our people didn't do that.
My history is we were created in Africa.
That big thing in their lip.
That big old discus in our lip.
The bigger it is, the more prestigious you
Yes,
are.
with the elongated earlobes. That's my history. Until we started reading the Bible for ourselves. Our brothers, our sisters in Puerto Rico, they probably thought their history was speaking Spanish. Viva la Puerto Rico.
Did you just mix two things?
I probably
Mexico and
did.
Puerto Rico.
But they don't know that they're the Balinquata and Taino Indians. Okay? Their history is not their history. It's the Spaniards' history. Okay? Alright. 1 Maccabees chapter 4 verses 3 through 9. Let's read it.
Now when Judas heard thereof, he himself removed, and when the valiant men with him, that he might smite the king's army which was at Emmaus. While as yet the forces were dispersed from the camp. In the mean season came Georgia by night into the camp of Judas. And when he found no man there, he sought them in the mountains. For said he, these fellows flee from us.
They're afraid of us. That's what he was saying. You know, generals of big armies like this, them niggers are afraid of us. Verse 6.
But as soon as it was day, Judas shewed himself in the plain with 3,000 men,
Uh-huh.
who nevertheless had neither armor nor swords in to their minds.
They had no armor. Verse 7.
And they saw the camp of the heathen, that it was strong and well harnessed, and compassed round about with horsemen. And these were expert of war.
Uh-huh.
Then said Judas to the men that were with him, Fear ye not their multitude,
Fear ye not their multitude. Go ahead.
neither be ye afraid of their assault.
Don't be afraid of their assault. Don't be afraid of all the weapons that they have. Go ahead.
Remember how our fathers were delivered in the Red Sea.
Oh, he went to scripture. Remember in Exodus what happened. Go ahead.
When Pharaoh pursued them with an army.
Remember when Pharaoh pursued our army?
Con.
1 Maccabees chapter 4, verse 10 through 15. Let's read it.
Now therefore let us cry unto heaven.
Cry unto heaven.
If peradventure the Most High will have mercy upon us,
Yes.
and remember the covenant of our fathers,
Uh-huh.
and destroy this host before our face this day.
Destroy this host before our face this day. 11.
That so all the heathen may know that there is one who delivereth and saveth Israel.
Go ahead.
Then the strangers lifted up their eyes and saw them coming over against them.
Uh-huh.
Wherefore they went out of the camp to battle, but they that were with Judas sounded their trumpets.
Sounded the trumpets. Remember, history repeats itself. Joshua going around Jericho, sounding trumpets. Anytime battle was in place, sounding trumpets. Go ahead.
So they joined battle, and the heathen being discomfited, fled into the plain.
Now understand this. You got all this weaponry, right?
Con.
You ready to fight. You are a hardened soldier. And you see this small group of Israelites coming to fight you with trumpets. Blaring trumpets. Something in your mind is not going to be, well, let's just go and destroy them. Something in your mind is saying, okay, these people are nuts. It's just like, you know, that person in the schoolyard who would eat raw chicken.
Really? You gonna go there?
That person in the
That's the person
schoolyard,
that bullied
and he
him.
would sit there and he would eat raw chicken, and he'd be looking all crazy. Nobody is going to sit up there and go towards that person.
I think that was your experience, Ella.
Yeah, it was. When I was, just little side note, when I was in grade school, there was this one bully, and this one bully, nobody touched. The gangs in Chicago wouldn't even bother him. He would sit in the schoolyard, true story, middle of summer or during school, and he would just eat raw chicken.
That was a thing.
I'm not lying, he would eat raw chicken.
He get something under.
Nothing happened to him. He would just sit there and be eating raw chicken.
That was a demon.
Well, no, now, yes, it was a demon. But back then, I wasn't thinking about no demons and nothing. I was thinking, this guy is crazy. And I'm not gonna fight him. Until one day, he took my coat. I went into my grandmother's apartment. Where's your coat at, boy? He got it. But you better get out there. You know them old school grandmas.
Oh yeah.
You better get out there and you better fight him.
Yeah.
You better not let nobody take it. I don't want, he can have it.
You better not.
Boy, I told you to get out there. You gonna fight me. Push open the door. Push open the screen door. You know, in the projects in Chicago, we got the door and you got the screen door. Can I have my coat back? No. My grandmother, you know, in the projects, well, you don't know, but there's like a screen, and she's looking at the screen. And then I was like, oh. Bam! Of course I got my butt kicked, but I got my coat back. I took a beating. I punched them, and you know how on TV when, you know, you punch somebody and they just look at you like, and they're just looking, you like, you swung with all your might, and it didn't even flinch. Boy, he whooped my butt. But see, he gave me my coat back because back then, even the bullies had respect.
Oh,
He
yeah.
saw my grandmother standing there, and after he beat me to a pulp, he gave me my coat back. Has nothing to do with what we're teaching right now. All right, I forgot, where were we? Who? 15, let's read it.
Howbeit all the hindmost of them were slain with the sword, for they pursued them into Gezerah and unto the plains of Idumea, and Azotus and Jamnia, so that there were slain of them upon 3,000 men.
Upon 3,000 men. Wow. Trumpets. They didn't have weapons. They had trumpets.
So the trumpets was on them like it was 3,000 men.
Right. First Maccabees 4, 21 and
Yeah.
25.
So does that mean they whooped them with the trumpets?
Most High struck them.
Yeah,
They didn't have to do anything. They blared the trumpet. The men were dead.
So it probably was the angels, the armies of heaven.
Remember, the Most High angel smote 180,000
Oh yeah,
men.
you gonna get it.
They whooped them with the trumpets.
Oh yeah.
First Maccabees 4, 21 and 25. Let's read it.
When therefore they perceived these things, they were sore afraid, and seeing also the host of Judas in the plain ready to fight, they fled everyone into the land of strangers. Then Judas returned to spoil the tents, where they got much gold, and silver, and blue silk, and purple of the sea, and great riches.
They got what was taken from them and then some. Go ahead.
After this they went home, and sung a song of thanksgiving.
What is this? Oh no, go ahead and finish that verse.
And praised the Most High in heaven, because it is good, because his mercy endureth forever. Thus Israel had a great deliverance that day.
But that's not the deliverance. That's the first battle. Okay? What is the song of thanksgiving?
Is that Exodus?
That Exodus.
No, it's the first. I don't.
Exodus 15. That Exodus. First Maccabees chapter 4, verse 26-29. Slide 82. We're halfway done. Second Maccabees, no. First Maccabees 4, 26-29. Let's read it.
Now all the strangers that had escaped came and told Lysias what had happened,
Uh-oh.
who, when he heard thereof, was confounded and discouraged, because neither such things as he would were done unto Israel, nor such things as the king commanded him were to come to
So
pass.
imagine this guy's like, wait a minute, what? They had trumpets, they were blaring, they were singing songs, they were calling on some guy, a higher, they were doing this, that. Well, what did you all do? We ran. And for some reason, a couple thousand of our people got smoked, got killed. Well, what kind of weapons they had? Trumpets.
Right.
Wait a minute, we just defeated the Persian army. We defeated Ptolemy because he's a coward. But yet and still, trumpets? No. Let's read.
The next year, therefore, following Lysias, gathered together 70,000 choice men afoot, and 5,000 horsemen, that he might subdue them.
Oh, I'm sorry. He's coming with triple of what was there. Okay, I'm not going to let this happen. Verse 29.
So they came into Idumea and pitched their tents at Bethsura, and Judas met them with 10,000 men.
Notice how Idumea always comes into play. Who is Idumea?
Who are the Idumeans?
Children of Esau.
Yep. Esau. No, they saw you. That's why I didn't say it. And they saw your mouth. You shouldn't have said nothing.
He was about to say
I think he said
You might as well
Esau.
say the
I mean,
devil.
he said
Same thing.
Israel. He said Israel.
No, it's not Israel.
Nice
about
one.
to say Israel.
I see Israel too.
Stone them.
No, Idumea is children of Esau. So once again, Esau. I'm going to show you something later also. All right, so Judas went to prayer. He saw all this stuff coming. So he wasn't just going to sit back. He went into prayer. Let's go to 1 Maccabees chapter 4, verse 30 to 33. First Maccabees 4, 30 to 33. All right, let's read it.
And when he saw that mighty army, he prayed and said, Blessed art thou, O Savior of Israel.
Hold there. There's this huge army coming, and he's saying, Blessed art thou. He didn't start with, are you going to smite him? Go ahead.
Who didst quell the violence of the mighty man by the hand of thy servant David,
Uh-huh.
and gavest the host of strangers into the hands of Jonathan, the soul of Saul, the son of Saul, and his armor bearer.
Uh-huh.
Shut up this army in the hand of thy people Israel, and let them be confounded in their power and horsemen.
Now we get an understanding on how to pray. Go ahead.
So that's where the Christian church get armor bearer from.
Well, a little more demonic than that, but sure. 32.
Make them to be of no courage, and cause the boldness of their strength to fall away, and let them quake at their destruction.
Uh-huh.
Cast them down with the sword of them that love thee, and let all those that know thy name praise thee with thanksgiving.
So did he pray and ask for strength to fight?
No.
Did he ask for anything for himself or for his group?
No.
No, he didn't. He said, Father, you confound them. Father, you make their boldness go away. Father, you make their strength wither and die. That's what he's saying.
Oh, yeah.
Father, you take care of them.
Uh-huh.
He didn't say, Father, build us up to be strong men so we can destroy this heathen.
Uh-huh.
That's not what it said.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. That's so.
All right, let's go to another battle. Let's go to 1 Maccabees chapter 4, verse 34 to 37.
Smart about those smart.
Now, Lysias, he's coming with his army. Okay? And Lysias like, you know what? Y'all failed before, but I'm not going to fail. 1 Maccabees 4, 34 to 37. Let's read it.
So they joined battle, and there were slain of the host of Lysias about 5,000 men. Even before them were they slain.
Even before them, they were slain. Oh my goodness. 35.
Now when Lysias saw his army put to flight, and the manliness of Judah's soldiers, and how they were ready either to live or die valiantly, he went into Antiochia, and gathered together a company of strangers. And having made his army greater than it was, he purposed to come again into Judea.
He said, I'm going to come back. So this is the second time, right? Verse 36.
Then said Judas and his brethren, Behold, our enemies are discomfited. Let us go up to cleanse and dedicate the sanctuary. Upon this all the hosts assembled themselves together and went up into Mount Sion.
All the hosts assembled themselves. They went into Mount Zion. Let's go to 1 Maccabees chapter 4, verse 53 to 61. Rededicating our temple. 1 Maccabees 4, 53 to 61. Let's read it.
And offer sacrifice according to the law upon the new altar of burnt offerings, which they had made.
They had to create new offerings and everything. The old stuff was pretty contaminated. Go ahead.
Look, at what time and what day the heathen had profaned it. Even in that was it dedicated with songs and citherns and harps and cymbals. Then all the people fell upon their faces, worshiping and praising the power of heaven, who had given them good success.
Good success. That's why I say during every deliverance, you give Father the glory and praise, and you thank Him for delivering you.
Yes, yes.
They did it back then. We should do it now. 56.
And so they kept the dedication of the altar 8 days and offered burnt offerings with gladness, and sacrificed the sacrifice of deliverance and praise.
So you see why this has nothing to do with Hanukkah. Nothing to do with Hanukkah. Nothing to do with any kind of satanic holiday that's going around right now. Okay? 57.
They decked also the forefront of the temple with crowns of gold, and with shields, and the gates and the chambers they renewed and hanged doors upon them.
They fixed it up. Verse 58.
Thus was there very great gladness among the people, for that the reproach of the heathen was put away.
Uh-huh.
Moreover, Judas and his brethren with the whole congregation of Israel ordained that the days of the dedication of the altar should be kept in their season from year to year by the space of 8 days, from the 25th day of the month Caslu, with mirth and gladness.
With mirth and with gladness. Mirth is a healing oil, a healing ointment. Gladness is a healing ointment. Okay? 60.
At that time also they builded up the Mount Sion with high walls and strong towers round about, lest the Gentiles should come and tread it down as they had done before.
Uh-huh.
And they set their garrison to keep it, and fortify Bethsura, to preserve it, that the people might have a defense against Idumea.
Against Idumea. Okay? Let's take a little side note. All right, let's look at briefly the heathen days. Easter. Easter is the union between Samarius and Nimrod. That's what you're celebrating on Easter. That's with the Easter bunny and the eggs and all that. That egg is a fertility egg. Okay?
Not to mention,
9 months later, guess who pops out? Tammuz.
but not to mention, rabbits don't lay eggs. So,
Yeah, but rabbits represent fertility and paganism. Right. So if you count March to December, how many months you get? March to December. How many months? April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. 9.
And it's right here.
You get 9 months.
yeah, no.
So Easter is the celebration of mother and son having sex.
Oh no,
Christmas, December 25th, is the birth of that nasty child.
That abomination.
Okay?
Oh,
Just thought I'd throw that out there. We'll
I
have
don't
more
know how
in 2
I said
weeks. All right, the candlestick was the menorah. The menorah was removed with the 7 churches in Revelation. The menorah is okay if you don't honor it like the fake Jews do with Hanukkah. They have a satanic root on why they do the menorah. Okay? Every day is not a Shabbat for this dedication. We're to have a Shabbat on the first Shabbat and on the 8th day, which technically is really day 7. Okay? So it's not like the other feast where it's a double Shabbat. It's not like bread. It's not like unleavened bread, and it's not like tabernacles. All right, so let's get back to the Feast of Dedication. Let's go to 1 Maccabees chapter 5, verses 1 through 3. We're at 98. Slide 98. 1 Maccabees chapter 5, verse 1 through 3. Let's read it.
Now when the nations round about heard that the altar was built, and the sanctuary renewed as before, it displeased them very much.
They were angry when the nations around saw that Jerusalem was rebuilt and everything. They were hot. 2.
Wherefore they thought to destroy the generation of Jacob that was among them. And thereupon they began to slay and destroy the people. Then Judas fought against the children of Esau in Idumea at Arabatan, because they besieged Gael. And he gave them a great overthrow and abated their courage and took their spoils.
So he took their spoils. Let's go to 1 Maccabees chapter 6, verse 16 to 22. All right, let's read it.
So King Antiochus died there in the 149th year.
In the 149, that's 149 B. No, it's not 149 BC. I think it's I think it is 149 BC. I'm not for sure. Verse 17.
Now when Lysias knew that the king was dead, he set up Antiochus his son, Antiochus his son, whom he had brought up being young, to reign in his stead, and his name he called Eupator.
Eupator. Go ahead.
About this time they that were in the tower shut up the Israelites round about the sanctuary, and saw always their hurt, and the strengthening of the heathen.
19.
Wherefore Judas, proposing to destroy them, called all the people together to besiege them. So they came together and besieged them in the 150th year, and he made mounts for shot against them, and other engines. Howbeit certain of them that were besieged got forth, unto whom some ungodly men of Israel joined themselves.
When it says the 150th year, I believe that's the year of the Greek Empire. Because it couldn't be 150 BC, because the Roman Empire, I believe, started about 167 BC. So I believe that's the 150th year of the Greek Empire. 20, go ahead. 22.
And they went unto the king, and said, How long will it be ere thou execute judgment and avenge our brethren?
So they're telling the king, how long are you going to wait for these Israelites to be destroyed? 1 Maccabees chapter 6, 28 to 38. You don't sit up there and give ultimatums to kings like this.
All right.
1 Maccabees chapter 6, verse 28 to 38. Thank you. Let's read.
Now when the king heard this, he was angry, and gathered together all his friends and the captains of his army, and those that had charge of the horse. There came also unto him from other kingdoms and from isles of the sea, bands of hired soldiers.
So he gathered a lot of people. Let's read verse 30.
So that the number of his army was 100,000 footmen, and 20,000 horsemen, and 32 elephants exercised in battle.
100,000 men. 20,000 horsemen. And when it says 2 and 30 elephants, I believe that's 62. I could be wrong. Verse 31.
These went through Idumea and pitched against Bethsura, which they assaulted many days, making engines of war. But they of Bethsura came out and burned them with fire and fought valiantly. Upon this Judas removed from the tower and pitched in
That's Zacharias.
Zacharias over against the king's camp. Then the king, rising very early, marched fiercely with his host toward Zacharias, where his armies made them ready to battle and sounded the trumpets.
So they made sure, okay, they want to blow trumpets, we're going to blow trumpets too.
Oh, wow.
All right.
Really?
34.
And to the end they might provoke the elephants to fight. They shewed them the blood of grapes and mulberries. Moreover, they divided the beasts among the armies. For every elephant they appointed 1,000 men, armed with coats of mail and with helmets of brass on their head. And besides this, for every beast there were ordained 500 horsemen of the best. They were ready at every occasion. Wheresoever the beast was, and whithersoever the beast went, they went also. Neither departed they from him.
So he got this huge army. Now, Judas has already defeated the Greeks twice. The king is saying it's not going to happen a third time. 37.
And upon the beasts were their strong towers of wood, which covered every one of them, and were girt fast upon unto them with devices. There were also upon every one 32 strong men that fought upon them, besides the Indian that ruled him.
Now, I got the Indian highlighted. What Indian would that be? Wouldn't be Gad. What Indian would that be?
The Indians was that. Yeah.
People from India.
Yeah.
All right then. 38.
As for the remnant of the horsemen, they sat them on this side and that side at the two parts of the host, giving them signs what to do, and being harnessed all over amidst the ranks.
Harnessed all over against the ranks. 1 Maccabees 6, 50 to 54. Right, let's read that.
So the king took Bethsura and set a garrison there to keep it. As for the sanctuary, he besieged it in many days, and set there artillery with engines and instruments to cast fire and stones, and pieces to cast darts and slings.
So you know what they mean when it says cast instruments of fire and stones.
Catapult.
You know how catapults, right? 52.
Whereupon they also made engines against their engines, and held them battle a long season.
They fought. Verse 53.
Yet at the last their vessels being without victuals, for that it was the 7th year, and they in Judea that were delivered from the Gentiles had eaten up the residue of the store.
And we know that victuals is food. 54.
There were but a few left in the sanctuary, because the famine did so prevail against them, that they were fain to disperse themselves, every man to his own place.
Yep, just like 70 AD. Just like 70 AD. It's the same thing. All right, let's skip down to verse 58. First Maccabees 6:58 to 63. Okay. Let's read that.
Now therefore let us be friends with these men, and make peace with them and with all their nations.
So you had these people, let us be friends. Let us make friends, because this is too hard. 59.
And covenant with them that they shall live after their laws as they did before. For they are therefore displeased and have done all these things, because we are abolished their laws.
They're displeased with us. Oh, they do stuff with crybabies. 60.
So the king and the princes were content. Wherefore he sent unto them to make peace, and they accepted thereof.
So, once again, it's just like the U.S. cavalry against Gad. Let us make peace, but something else happened. 61.
Also the king and the princes made an oath unto them, whereupon they went out of the stronghold. Then the king entered into Mount Sion, but when he saw the strength of the place, he broke his oath that he had made,
Broke his oath. Go ahead.
and gave commandment to pull down the wall round about. Afterward departed he in all haste, and returned unto Antiochia, where he found Philip to be master of the city. So he fought against him, and took the city by force.
What happened next is they destroyed our records and tried to get us to go against the laws of the Most High. We're at 110. All right, let's go back to let's go now to 2nd Maccabees, chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. 2nd Maccabees, chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. And let's read it.
It is also found in the records that Jeremy the prophet commanded them that were carried away to take of the fire as it has been signified.
When it talks about Jeremy, it's talking about Jeremiah. Verse 2.
And how that the prophet, having given them the law, charged them not to forget the commandments of the Most High, and that they should not err in their minds when they see images of silver and gold with their ornaments.
That's all through the book of Jeremiah. Verse 3.
And with other such speeches exhorted he them that the law should not depart from their hearts.
Remember, that's in Jeremiah chapter 5, verse 17, I believe. That the law is going to be in your heart. Okay. Let's go to 2nd Maccabees. I'm so used to saying first. 2nd Maccabees chapter 3, verses 7 through 11. Okay. All right, let's read that.
Now when Apollonius came to the king, and it showed him of the money whereof he was told, the king chose out Heliodorus his treasure to bring. So forthwith Heliodorus took his journey under a color of visiting the cities of Seleucia and Phoenice, but indeed to fulfill the king's purpose. And when he was come to Jerusalem, and had been courteously received of the high priest of the city, he told him what intelligence was given of the money, and declared wherefore he came, and asked if these things were so indeed.
Acts if these things were so indeed. Let's read verse 10.
Then the high priest told him that there was such money laid up for the relief of widows and fatherless children, and that some of it belonged to Hyrcanus, son of Tobias, a man of great dignity, and not as the wicked Simon had him misinformed. But somewhere in all was 400 talents of silver and 200 of gold.
Once again, people sitting up there telling their business. Once again, They always get us with money when the Most High has made provided for us. Judas has been sacrificing and fighting in this so-called high priest, which we're going to get his name in a minute. Gave it all out. 2 Maccabees chapter 4, verse 11 through 15. And when it talks about Jason, let it be known that I did not put in what they call Jason. That's actually in the Apocrypha. You'll see that in verse 13. Let's read 2 Maccabees 4, 11 through 15.
And the royal privileges granted of special favor to the Jews by the means of John the father of Eupomus, who went ambassador to Rome for amity and aid, he took away. And putting down the governments which were according to the law, he brought up new customs against the law. For he built gladly a place of exercise under the tower itself, and brought the chief young men under his subjection, and made them wear a hat.
Made them wear a hat. Now, that is a ultimate no-no. You know, the high priests were not supposed to cover their heads.
Nope.
Okay? Changing stuff around. Verse 13.
Now such was the height of Greek fashions, and increase of heathenish manners, through the exceeding profaneness of Jason, that ungodly wretch, and no high priest.
So this is Jason, the ungodly wretch. Okay, I didn't put that in there. The Bible says he's no high priest. He was the high priest at that time. Money, money, money. 14.
That the priest had no courage to serve any more at the altar, but despising the temple and neglecting the sacrifices, had hastened to be partakers of the unlawful allowance in the place of exercise, after the game of discus called them forth.
Verse 15.
Not setting by the honors of their fathers, but liking the glory of Grecians best of all.
All right, so a lot of things going on right now. Jason was a high priest, and basically it was about the money. Okay? They didn't want to do anything according to the Most High. Even to the point that they have where after the game of discus, we know what discus is, right? It's a Greek, it's a sport. It's track. Throwing the discus.
This is when they put it in their arm, like that.
Right. Okay? Distraction. Again. Get us with sport. Basketball. Get us with sport, right?
Football. Tight.
Football.
Right.
Soccer.
Righty tighty. Right tight.
Verse 15. We read verse 15.
Here it says basketball.
All right. After all that fighting and all that work, Judas that was done, right? After all that fighting, now the temple. He rebuilt the temple. Now they're destroying the temple again, but they're not destroying. It's not the Greeks who are doing it. It's us who's doing it. Let's get 2 Maccabees chapter 6, verses 1 through 4, 1 through 6. All right, now understand. These are Israelites. Let's read.
Not long after this, the king sent an old man of Athens to compel the Jews to depart from the laws of their fathers, and not to live after the laws of the Most High,
Go ahead.
and to pollute also the temple in Jerusalem, and to call it the temple of Jupiter Olympius.
Jupiter Olympius. Well, Jupiter is really a Roman god, but it don't matter. They're all the same. Go ahead.
And that in Gerizim of Jupiter, defender of strangers, as they did desire that dwelt in the place. The coming in of this mischief was sore and grievous to the people.
Sore and grievous to the people. Verse 4.
For the temple was filled with riot and revelling by the Gentiles, who dallied with harlots, and had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places, and besides that brought in things that were not lawful.
They were having orgies in the temple.
That's what Greece did.
They did a lot of orgies. Okay, verse 5.
The altar also was filled with profane things, which the law forbid. Neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days or ancient fasts, or to profess himself at all to be a Jew.
You couldn't even call yourself an Israelite. You called you're a Greek. Same thing with being told you're an African American. It's the same thing. You're not an Israelite, you're an African American, or you're an Afro American, or you're a black. It's the same thing. Second Maccabees chapter 6 verse 7 and 9. Let's touch on birthdays for a second. Second Maccabees chapter 6 verse 7 through 9. Okay, let's read it.
And in the day of the king's birth, every month they were brought by bitter constraint to eat of the sacrifices. And when the fast of Bacchus was kept, the Jews were compelled to go in procession to Bacchus carrying ivy.
Bacchus. We're gonna learn some more about this spirit of Bacchus. You see it every single Sunday, except in Christian churches they don't do the stuff that they were doing here. But it's the same spirit. Verse 8.
Moreover, there went out a decree to the neighbor cities of the heathen by the suggestion of Ptolemy against the Jews, that they should observe the same fashions and be partakers of their sacrifices.
Go ahead.
And whoso would not conform themselves to the manners of the Gentiles should be put to death. Then might a man have seen the present misery.
Okay. Some of us rebelled against the Greek oppression. Let's go to 2 Maccabees chapter 6 verse 10. 10 and 11, excuse me. 2 Maccabees 6, 10 and 11, let's read it.
For there were 2 women brought who had circumcised their children, whom when they had openly led around about the city, the babes standing at their breasts, they cast them down headlong from the wall.
So these women, they were openly bringing their children out and saying, yes, I did castrate. Excuse me. I did circumcise my child. And what they do, they threw them. They grabbed the women and threw them off the wall. Remember, these walls were not short. They were pretty tall.
The walls of Jerusalem?
Right.
It was like 80.
They were about 80 feet tall.
Yeah, they're tall. Big tall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Verse 11.
And others that had run together into caves nearby to keep the Sabbath day secretly, being discovered by Philip, were all burnt together, because they made a conscience to help themselves for the honor of the most sacred day.
So they burned them in the caves. They found out that they were keeping the Shabbat, and they burned them in caves. Remember Daniel, the 7th chapter, fire, captivity, right? First Maccabees 6, 18 and 19. Second Maccabees. Eleazar, right? Wasn't he one of the sons? He was one of the sons of Mattathias. Let's read.
Eleazar, one of the principal scribes, an aged man and of a well-favored countenance, was constrained to open his mouth and to eat swine's flesh. But he, choosing rather to die gloriously than to live staying with such an abomination, spit it forth, and came of his own accord to the torment.
So he did not choose to eat it. So he decided, I'm going to die. This is one of Mattathias' sons. One of the 5.
It's cruel how persistent they are. Like, it's very cruel.
Oh yeah. It's very cruel. 2 Maccabees chapter 7. Some of us are familiar with this chapter. But this is why we do dedication. This is one of the reasons why we honor dedication. The strength of the people who decided not to follow Greek customs. All right, we got about 20-something verses. 2 Maccabees chapter 7. Let's read it.
It came to pass also that 7 brethren with their mother were taken, and compelled by the king against the law to taste swine's flesh, and were tormented with scourges and whips.
They were whipped. Go ahead.
But one of them that spake first said thus, What wouldest thou ask or learn of us? We are ready to die rather than to transgress the laws of our fathers. Then the king, being in a rage, commanded pans and cauldrons to be made hot, which forthwith being heated, he commanded to cut out the tongue of him that spake first, and to cut off the utmost parts of his body, the rest of his brethren and his mother looking on.
So it started dismembering him. Okay, the first one who spoke up. All right. Verse 5.
Now when he was thus maimed and all his members, he commanded him, being yet alive, to be brought to the fire, to be fried in the pan. And as the vapor of the pan was for a good space dispersed, they exhorted one another with the mother to die manfully, saying thus, The Most High looketh upon us, and in truth hath comfort in us. As Moses in his song, which witnessed to their faces, declared, saying, And he should be comforted in his servants.
So while they're being tortured, they're singing Exodus 15. Very important song that we need to know, because there's going to be in the New Jerusalem also. Verse 7.
So when the first was dead after this number, they brought the second to make him a mocking stock. And when they had pulled off the skin of his head with the hair,
They did what? That is very harsh.
Scalped him.
That is
Not even
very
scalp,
harsh.
they pulled it. Scalp, you cut it. That's,
No,
that's
they
horrible.
pulled it.
That's horrible.
Go ahead.
They asked him, Wilt thou eat before thou be punished throughout every member of thy body? But he answered in his own language and said, No. Wherefore he also received the next torment in order, as the former did.
They started dismembering his body now. Now he's already been, his head is already, the hair and the skin is already off his head. They pulled that off. Told him, eat eat swine. He said no. So they started dismembering him also. They cut off his tongue. Then they started cutting off his limbs. 9.
And when he was at the last gasp, he said, Thou like a fury taketh us out of this present life, but the King of the world shall raise us up, who have died for his laws unto everlasting life. After him was the third made a mocking stock, and when he was required, he put out his tongue, and that right soon, holding forth his hands manfully.
He was like this. Here, do it. He didn't wait. He's like, take out my tongue. Here, take off my arms. You love it?
And said courageously, These I had from heaven, and for his laws I despised them, and from him I hope to receive them again. Insomuch that the king and they that were with him marveled at the young man's courage, for that he nothing regarded the pain.
They're like, this young man, wow. I mean, look at him. Let's kill him. Verse 13.
And when this man was dead also, they tormented and mangled the fourth in like manner. So when he was ready to die, he said thus, It is good, being put to death by men, to look for hope from the Most High, to be raised up again by him. As for thee, thou shalt have no resurrection to life.
He said, you're going to hell.
Basically.
He said, you're going to hell. I'm going to live with, I'm going into Abraham's bosom. But you're going to hell. 15.
Afterward they brought the fifth also and mangled him.
Same thing. Go ahead.
Then looked he unto the king and said, Thou hast power over men. Thou art corruptible. Thou dost what thou wilt. Yet think not that our nation is forsaken of the Most High.
Think not that I... Now remember, they were scourged before this. So they were already beaten pretty bad. And yet they said no. 17.
But abide a while, and behold his great power, how he will torment thee and thy seed. After him also they brought the sixth, who being ready to die said, Be not deceived without cause, for we suffer these things for ourselves, having sinned against our Father in heaven. Therefore marvelous things are done unto us.
You said, you know what? We have sinned. And that's why this stuff is happening to us.
But he called them marvelous.
Yes. Persecution is wonderful. Because it makes you realize, okay, the Most High is more important. 19.
But think not thou that takest in hand to strive against the Most High, that thou shalt escape unpunished. But the mother was marvelous above all, and worthy of honorable memory. For when she saw her 7 sons slain with the space of one day, she bare it with a good courage, because of the hope that she had in the Most High.
The mother had to do something to see her 7 sons just slain like that. 21.
Yea, she exhorted every one of them in her own language, filled with her courageous spirits, and stirring up her womanish thoughts with a manly stomach. She said unto them,
So she got strong and bold. 22.
I cannot tell how ye came into my womb, for I neither gave you breath nor life, neither was it I that formed the members of every one of you. But doubtless the Creator of the world, who formed the generation of man and found out the beginning of all things, will also of his own mercy give you breath and life again. as ye now regard not your own selves for his law's sake.
24.
Now Antiochus, thinking himself despised and suspecting it to be reproachful speech, whilst the youngest was yet alive, did not only exhort him by words, but also assured him with oaths that he would make him both a rich and happy man, if he would turn from the laws of his fathers, and that also he would take him for his friend and trust him with affairs. But when the young man would in no case hearken unto him, the king called his mother and exhorted her that she would counsel the young man to save his life.
Counsel the young man to save his life. So let's see what she did. Verse 26.
And when he had exhorted her with many words, she promised him that she would counsel her son. But she, bowing herself toward him, laughing the cruel tyrant to scorn, spake in her country language on this manner. O my son, have pity upon me that bare thee 9 months in my womb, and gave thee such 3 years and nourished thee, and brought thee up into this age and endured the troubles of education.
3 years old. 28.
I beseech thee, my son, look upon the heaven and the earth, and all that is therein, and consider that the Most High made them of things that were not, and so was mankind made likewise. Fear not this tormentor, but being worthy of thy brethren, take thy death, that I may receive thee again in mercy with thy brethren.
Receive thee in mercy. It's like 134.
While
Verse
she-
30.
While she was yet speaking these words, the young man said, Whom wait ye for? I will not obey the king's commandment, but I will obey the commandment of the law that was given unto our fathers by Moses. And thou that hast been the author of all mischief against the Hebrews shalt not escape the hands of the Most High.
He shall not escape the hands of the Most High. 32.
For we suffer because of our sins.
We suffer because of our sins. That's why they're suffering. Because of our sins. 33.
And though the living power be angry with us a little while for our chastening and correction, yet shall he be at one again with his servants.
That's something that we don't understand. The Most High is angry for us for a little while. But we go through chastening and correction. Yet, through that chastening and correction, we should have eternal life with Him. Yeah, the Most High is not pleased with us when we sin. And yes, He is angry when we sin. And yes, He is going to come with chastising and correction. But it's to make sure that you are with Him in the New Jerusalem. 34.
But thou, O godless man, and of all other most wicked, be not lifted up without a cause, nor puffed up with uncertain hopes, lifting up thy hand against the servants of the Most High.
35.
For thou hast not yet escaped the judgment of Almighty Power, who seeth all things. For our brethren who are now have suffered a short pain are dead under the Most High's covenant of everlasting life.
So those brothers that died, they're in covenant with the Most High. They're in Abraham's bosom right now. Go ahead.
But thou, through the judgment of the Most High, shalt receive just punishment for thy pride.
Which is hell. 37.
But I, as my brethren, offer up my body and life for the laws of our fathers, beseeching the Most High that He would speedily be merciful unto our nation, and that thou by torments and plagues mayest confess that He alone is the Most High, and that in me and my brethren the wrath of the Almighty, which is justly brought upon our nation, may cease. Then the kings, being in a rage, handed him worse than all the rest, and took it grievously that he was mocked.
So imagine this 3-year-old just pouring out all this knowledge and understanding.
Yeah, I would
King
love to
was
hear
hot.
that.
A 3-year-old is going to show me up. Verse 40.
So this man died undefiled, and put his whole trust in the Most High. Last of all fathers after Last of all after the sons of the mother died. Let this be enough now to have spoken concerning the idolatrous feasts and the extreme tortures.
Let this now be enough concerning the idolatrous feast and these extreme tortures that our people did. Allcreatures.org. Dead piles are a constant presence in factory farms, while pigs are fed massive amounts of antibiotics to keep them alive in conditions that would otherwise kill them. Hundreds of thousands succumb to stress of violent mutilations, intense confinement. Dead pens are sent to rendering plants, and where they are made into fillers for meat of all fast food places. All right. Yeah. Eugenics. Courtesy of Monsanto. All right, so what finally happened with the Maccabees? What was the end result of all of this? Let's go to 2 Maccabees chapter 15, verses 1 through 6. We're at slide 142, and we're almost done. 2 Maccabees chapter 15, verses 1 through 6. And let's read it.
But Nicanor, hearing that Judas and his company were in the strong places about Samaria, resolved without any danger to set upon them on the Sabbath day. Nevertheless, the Jews that were compelled to go with him said, "Oh, destroy not so cruelly and barbarously, but give honor to that day, which he that seeth all things hath honored with holiness above all other days." Then the most ungracious wretch demanded, if there were a mighty one in heaven that had commanded the Sabbath day to be kept.
The ungracious wretch is Nicanor, not Nicanor, whatever. Verse 4.
And when they said, there is in heaven a living power and mighty, who commanded the seventh day to be kept, then said the other, and I also am mighty upon earth, and I command to take arms, and to do the king's business. Yet he obtained not to have his wicked will done.
Wow. Company man. We're going to do what the king said.
Oh, yeah.
Verse 6.
So Nicanor, in exceeding pride and haughtiness, determined to set up a public monument of his victory over Judas and them that were with him.
What about Judas? What did he do? Let's go to 2 Maccabees chapter 15, verses 7 through 12. 2 Maccabees chapter 15, verse 7 through 12. And let's read that.
But Maccabeus had ever sure confidence that the Most High would help him. Wherefore he exhorted his people not to fear the coming of the heathen against them, but to remember the help which in former times they had received from heaven, and now to expect the victory and aid which should come unto them from the Almighty, and so comforting them out of the law and the prophets, and withal putting them in mind of the battles that they won afore, he made them more cheerful.
Verse 10.
And when he had stirred up their minds, he gave them their charge, showing them therewithal the falsehood of the heathen and the breach of oaths. Thus he armed every one of them, not so much with defensive shields and spears, as with comfortable and good words, and besides that, he told them a dream worthy to be believed, as if it had been so indeed, which did not a little rejoice them.
He didn't come with these shields or anything like that. This is civil war, by the way. Nicanor was a high priest, and he was the high priest of the king. Okay? 12.
And this was his vision, that Onias, who had been high priest, a virtuous and a good man, reverent in conversation, gentle in condition, well spoken also and exercised from a child in all points of virtue, holding up his hands prayed for the whole body of the Jews.
What happened next? Let's go to 1 Maccabees chapter 15, verses 25 to 27. Second Maccabees 15, 25 to 27. Let's read it.
Then Nicanor and they that were with him came forward with trumpets and songs. But Judas and his company encountered the enemies with invocation and prayer.
Yep.
So that fighting with their hands and praying unto the Most High with their hearts, they slew no less than 35,000 men. For through the appearance of the Most High they were greatly cheered.
They were greatly cheered. Nicanor, he's alive today. He's your Christian pastor. And here's a few of them right here. Okay? What happened after the fight? Let's get 2 Maccabees chapter 15, verse 28 to 39. And the faith that he has, a lot of these Christian pastors are spiritually going to have. Let's read it.
Now when the battle was done, returning again with joy, They knew that Nicanor lay dead in his harness.
Uh-huh.
Then they made a great shout and a noise, praising the Almighty in their own language.
Yep.
And Judas, who was ever the chief defender of the citizens both in body and mind,
Uh-huh.
who continued his love toward his countrymen all his life, commanded to strike off Nicanor's head and his hand with his shoulder and bring them to Jerusalem.
Cut off his head. They did a little more to his head though. Verse 31.
So when he was there and called them of his nation together and set the priests before the altar, he sent for them that were of the tower, and showed them vile Nicanor's head and the hand of that blasphemer, which with proud brags he had stretched out against the holy temple of the
So
Almighty.
they had his head in one hand and they had his hand in another. 33.
And when he had cut out the tongue of that ungodly Nicanor, he commanded that they should give it by pieces unto the fowls, and hang up the reward of his madness before the temple.
So they chopped out the tongue and started dicing up the tongue and throwing it to the birds, feeding the pigeons with his tongue. 34.
So every man praised toward the heaven the glorious power, saying, Blessed be he that kept his own place undefiled.
Uh-huh.
He hanged also Nicanor's head upon the tower, an evident and manifest sign unto all the help of the Most High. And they ordained all with the common decree in no case to let that day pass without solemnity, but to celebrate the 30th day of the 12th month, which in the Syrian tongue is called Adar, that day before Mardocheus' day.
37.
Thus went it with Nicanor, and from that time forth the Hebrews had the city in their power. And here will I make an end. And if I have done well, and it is fitting with the story, it is that which I desire. But if slenderly and meanly, it is that which I attain to.
Uh-huh.
For as it is hurtful to drink wine or water alone, and as wine mingled with water is pleasant and delighteth the taste, even so speech finely framed delight the ears of them that read the story. And here shall be an end.
Here shall be an end. Okay. That's the Feast of Dedication. And let's see. Hold on a moment. Why were they so combative about pork? So, I don't know how the way to play this.
No. Double click.
Well, it was playing before.
You have to be in a slideshow to play it.
Yeah.
It's not going to play in a slideshow. I already tried that.
Really? Not the type of slideshow that you do. It has to be like where your screen shows the whole entire video. Like the whole entire slide.
You're ready.
Well,
Yes.
There are reasons that the meat of the pigs become more saturated with toxins than many of its counterpart farm animals. The first reason has to do with the digestive system of a pig. Pigs are the filthiest animals on the earth, with the most parasites and diseases than any other animal that mankind consumes. Pigs are commonly associated with eating not only their own feces, but of other animals and humans. In parts of the third world, it is the best scavenger known that exists in the villages that do not have modern toilets, and the villages excrete in open air. Excreta is cleared by pigs. A pig farm with 5,000 animals produces as much fecal waste as a city of 50,000 people. A pig digests whatever it eats rather quickly, in up to about 4 hours. On the other hand, cow takes a good 24 hours to digest what it's eaten. During the digestive process, animals, including humans, get rid of excess toxins as well as other components of the food eaten that could be dangerous to health. Pigs' bodies contain many toxins, worms, and latent diseases. Although some of these infestations are harbored in other animals, modern veterinarians say that pigs are far more predisposed to the illnesses than any other animal. This could be because pigs like to scavenge and will eat any kind of food. Since the pig's digestive system operates rather basically, many of these toxins remain in the system to be stored in more than adequate fatty tissues. Pigs also do not have any sweat glands. Sweat glands are a tool for the body to get rid of toxins. This leaves more toxins in the pig's body. The pork and swine industry has been continually plagued and continues to be so to this day by a wide variety of hazardous infections and diseases. Even pigs that are carefully reared in pig farms are still affected. According to a surprising new investigation on pigs that were raised in the US, 69% of all raw pork samples tested, nearly 200 samples in total, were contaminated with dangerous bacteria, Yersinia enterocolitica, which causes fever and gastrointestinal illnesses with diarrhea, vomiting and stomach cramps. Pigs carry a variety of parasites in their bodies and meat. Some of these parasites are difficult to kill, even when cooking. This is the reason there are so many warnings out there about eating undercooked pork. Pork poses certain health risks from bacteria and resistant bacteria that causes infection and viruses. Shocking new research has shown that millions of people are living with parasites inside them from eating pork. Here are some of the deadliest parasites found in humans that consume pork. Pork tapeworm parasite, Taenia solium. The pork tapeworm is number 1 in top 10 list of foodborne parasites in the world, affecting 50 million people worldwide, killing 50,000 people each year worldwide. Though these figures are both likely to be underestimated according to the researchers. Tapeworm infections are common in Asia, Africa, the Philippines, South America, parts of the southern Europe, and pockets of North America. The pork tapeworm can affect your heart, brain, lungs, and diaphragm. In 60% of the diagnosed cases of pork tapeworm, the victim has cysts inside the brain, and with the cysts in the brain you get seizures, coma, hallucinations, or even possible death. The pork tapeworm forms cysts inside the tissue of the pig. When the human eats pork, they get infected. Adult tapeworms living inside the intestines of humans produce up to 50,000 eggs each. In the human gut, a cyst forms into an adult tapeworm, where these can grow up to several meters long. The adult worms lay eggs that have passed into human feces. If the pig eats the feces, the pig grows cysts inside its muscles, tissues, and the life cycle repeats. Tapeworm larvae brain parasites is an increasingly serious public health problem around the world. Pork tapeworm larvae can create cavities in the brain and other parts of the body tissues where their tiny bodies can grow sometimes into tapeworms 2 to 7 meters long and can live up to 25 years in the human body. CT scans have shown affected patients having so many wormholes in the brain making it appear similar to a starry sky. Chronic headaches and pork tapeworms. New research has shown that the cause of chronic headaches, such as migraines and tension, headache symptoms may be a sign of pork tapeworm inside the brain. The most common cause of adult onset epilepsy in the world is caused by pork tapeworm. 50 million people around the world are affected by epilepsy, many of which are caused by pork tapeworm. It can cause brain tumors, depression, dementia, aneurysm. Aneurysm occurs when part of the blood vessel, artery, or cardiac chamber swells, potentially causing headaches, dizziness, seizures, other neurological disorders, and sudden death. This one parasite alone should be enough to stop you from eating pork. Neurocystic cirrhosis is the result of accidental ingestion of eggs of Taenia solium, i.e. pork tapeworm, usually due to the contamination of food by people with Taeniasis, tapeworm infection. The closer scientists look at the epidemiology of a disease, the worse it becomes. In one study in Peru, researchers found 37% of people showed signs of having been infected at some point. The review of the scientific literature concluded that somewhere between 11 million and 29 million people have neurocystic cirrhosis in Latin America alone. Tapeworms are also common in the other regions of the world, such as Asia and Africa. People have a higher risk for getting neurocystic cirrhosis by swallowing parasite eggs. If they have a pork tapeworm infection, this is called autoinfection. Live in a household with someone else who has a pork tapeworm, or even eat food made by someone with a pork tapeworm infection. The roundworm parasite. One of the biggest concerns with eating pork meat is trichinosis or trichinosis. This is an infection that humans get from eating pork that contains the larvae of the trichinella worm. Over 1 billion people are thought to be infected with roundworm. You get the worm by ingesting food or water which contains worm eggs. A large percentage of this 1 billion has been linked to consuming pork. One roundworm can produce nearly 250,000 eggs a day. In the US and Canada alone, 1 in 6 people has trichinosis from eating trichina worms, which are found in pork. Many people have no symptoms to warn them of this, and when they do, they resemble symptoms of many other illnesses. These worms are not noticed during meat inspections, nor does salting or smoking kill them. Common symptoms of trichinosis include nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, headaches, fever, chills, coughs, swollen eyes, muscle pain, aching joints, coordination problems, heart issues, and even breathing problems. According to research, these symptoms can last for weeks, and more serious conditions months on end. The roundworm Trichinella spiralis causes trichinosis. As in tapeworm infections, the mature worms are largely confined to the intestines, where symptoms include nausea, heartburn, dyspepsia, diarrhea, and cynophilia. The larvae can migrate through the body, producing edema, muscle pains, fever, and weakness. The greatest danger is the larvae reaches the brain, where they can cause serious neurological deficits, such as ataxia or respiratory paralysis, and even death. Death results from a rare form of stroke, myocarditis, encephalitis, and pneumonia. Other helminth parasites, large multicellular organisms found in pork, include pinworm, hookworm, and ascaris worms. There are dozens of other worms, germs, diseases, and bacteria which are commonly found in pigs, many of which are specific to the pig or found in greater frequency in pigs. Pigs are also primary carriers of the hepatitis E virus, the HEV, the PRRS virus, the porcine, reproductive, and respiratory syndrome, the Nipah virus, the meningococcal virus. Each of these parasites and viruses can lead to serious health problems or even death. Eating pork increases your waistline and increases your chance of developing deadly diseases such as heart diseases, diabetes, arthritis, osteoporosis, Alzheimer's, asthma, and impotence. Heart disease risks. Eating processed meats such as bacon, ham, and sausages can increase the risk of heart disease and diabetes. Processed meats are already linked to the higher chance of developing bowel cancer, but a roundup of research has now shown a link with other conditions. 20 worldwide published studies involving more than 1 million people. It found a 42% higher risk of heart disease and a 19% increased risk of type 2 diabetes for each daily serving, on average of 50 grams of processed meat. A 50-gram serving is roughly equivalent to 2 rashers of bacon or 1 hot dog. Bladder cancer risks. Another disadvantage of pork is that it increases your risk of bladder cancer if you eat well done or burnt pork often. Pork cooked at high temperatures creates heterocyclic amines, HCAs, which can cause cancer. A 12-year study involving 844 patients with bladder cancer and 878 patients without bladder cancer gathered nutritional information and found that patients who ate pork and other red meats well done had a significantly higher risk of bladder cancer. Liver cirrhosis. Pork is causing liver cirrhosis at a similar rate to that of consuming excessive alcohol. Several factors about pork consumption that could be causing liver damage and toxicity. There is an obvious fact that most of all pork products in the West consumed are processed, such as smoked ham, cold cuts, bacon, and sausages. These products contain high levels of nitrate preservatives, which are known as carcinogens and can contribute to the development of liver cancer. In addition, processed pork ingredients are often heated to extremely high temperatures for prolonged periods of time, resulting in the production of hundreds of harmful free radicals that are known to wreak havoc on health, particularly liver health. A relation between pork consumption and cirrhosis of the liver is apparent across countries and has been consistently maintained for the last 40 years. In countries with low alcohol consumption, no correlation was obtained between alcohol consumption and cirrhosis. However, a significant correlation was obtained between cirrhosis and pork. A similar relationship was seen in the 10 Canadian provinces, where there were no correlation between cirrhosis, mortality, and alcohol consumption, but a significant correlation was obtained with pork. Pork fat has a high saturated fatty acid and cholesterol contents. Diets high in pork have been linked in population studies to higher risks of esophageal, thyroid, lung, pancreatic, liver, bladder, colorectal, and prostate cancers. There are remarkably strong correlations between pork consumption and liver disease, liver cancer, and multiple sclerosis. Research has indicated there is an association between pork consumption and the primary liver cancer, hepatocellular carcinoma. Pork and multiple sclerosis. Researchers looked for other diseases that correlation with pork consumption and hit upon multiple sclerosis. The connection is remarkable. A significant correlation was obtained between prevalence of multiple sclerosis and pork consumption. Breast cancer risks have been found in patients who consume pork. Pork and gout. Because pork is moderately high in purines, consuming excessive or frequent amounts can increase your uric acid levels, leading to worsened gout symptoms. When pork is eaten, it can wreak havoc on the body. It tends to have more fat than beef or chicken. This can cause high blood pressure, high cholesterol, cancer, sodium retention, and heart problems. Pig meat contains excessive quantities of histamines and imidazole compounds, which can lead to itching and inflammation. Eating pork can lead to gallstones and obesity due to its high cholesterol and saturated fat contents. The more research that is done on pigs, the more it is gradually revealing that this meat is not fit for human consumption. So, to round up, as you can see, pork, processed, fresh, raw, fully cooked, all have serious health implications.
There you go.
People, I gotta have my bacon.
If you pray over it, it's good.
But that's people that are ignorant.
So that was our that was on the Maccabees and the Feast of Dedication, but let's get to the temples. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 16 and 17. Because the temple is not of sticks and stones. The temple is our body now. Let's read it.
Know ye not that ye are the temple of the Most High, and that the Spirit of the Most High dwelleth in you? If any man defile the temple of the Most High, him shall the Most High destroy. For the temple of Ahiah is holy, which temple ye are.
Which temple ye are. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 19 and 20. Let's read it.
What? Know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost which is in you, which ye have of the Most High, and ye are not your own? For ye are bought with a price. Therefore glorify the Most High in your body and in your spirit, which are the Most High's.
All right. I believe our last scripture, 1 Corinthians 10, 20. Let's read it.
But I say that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils, and not to the Most High. And I would not that.
Oh no, go ahead.
And I would not that ye should have fellowship with devils.
Not have fellowship with devils. Our last scripture actually is Psalms chapter 30, verse 7 through 12. Psalms 37 through 12. All right, let's read that.
Ahiah, by the favor thou hast made my mountain to stand strong. Thou didst hide thy face, and I was troubled. I cried to thee, O Ahiah, thy power, and unto the Most High I made supplication. What profit is there in my blood when I go down to the pit? Shall the dust praise thee? Shall it declare thy truth?
Verse 10.
Hear, O Ahiah, and have mercy upon me, the Most High. Be thou my helper. Thou hast turned for me my mourning into dancing. Thou hast put off my sackcloth and girded me with gladness. To the end that my glory may sing praise to thee and not be silent, O Ahiah, my power. I will give thanks unto thee forever.
Dedication may not be one of the feasts mentioned in Leviticus, but it is maintained great importance for the Israelites. Without the firm stand of the Maccabees, to whom Yeshua have been able to go 200 years later. The dedication story of oppression, liberation, and dedication to the Most High connects to the Most High's whole story regarding Israel, and in so doing connects to Yeshua, the Gospels. Let us praise the Most High for the Mashiach and the temple of His body. We give all praises to the Most High, Ahia, Ashar, Ahia. All right. So now we understand and learn the Feast of Dedication has nothing to do with Hanukkah, has nothing to do with any Jewish satanic holiday. But the Feast of Dedication is about one family, those brothers who stood up against the Greek oppression. All right, please subscribe to our channel for future teachings and take a look at the teachings that we have done in the past. We give all praises to Ahia, Ashar, Ahia, and we give thanks to Yeshua, the Mashiach, and all praises and glory go to Rabbah, the Holy Spirit. Kwam Yashar.